Salve, salve! E aí galera, tudo bom? Como é que vocês estão aí? Seja muito bem-vindo para mais uma live aqui no canal Lançamento de Foguete. E hoje o lançamento será do foguete SOYUZ. Do foguete SOYUZ lá na Sibéria. O lançamento será na Sibéria. E eu queria saber se o áudio tá bom, se o vídeo tá bom. Liga aí se tá tudo certo aí. Daqui a 10 minutos começa a live deles pra gente acompanhar. Bora, quem for chegando aí já deixa o like, compartilha aí pra divulgar essa obra da ciência que é os foguetes. E se maravilhar com a lindeza que é o lançamento. Beleza, beleza. Quem for chegando aí já vai dando like aí. E é nóis. Bom, vou aqui mostrar pra vocês de onde vai ser lançado. Hoje o foguete, deixa eu ver se tá. Hoje o foguete que vai ser lançado é o SOYUZ e ele vai lançar 36 satélites em órbita para a constelação de internet ONEWEB, igual a Starlink da SpaceX de Elon Musk, que é chamada de ONEWEB e hoje é a 7. Vai decolar do cosmódromo de Vostochnaya, sei lá, na Sibéria. Vai decolar da Sibéria daqui a alguns minutinhos. Falta 8 minutos para a live deles. Deixa eu ver se tá tudo certo aqui na live. Tá tudo certo. Salve, salve Henrique. Beleza? Hoje o foguete é lançado meio que de dentro de um buraco, né, digamos assim. E ele é segurado por essas perninhas aqui, ó. Aí ele vai, liga, aí espera um pouquinho, aí ele sai. E também tem a cruz de Korolev, que é quando esses estágios aqui se libera, ele forma tipo uma cruz, aí se chama cruz de Korolev, alguma coisa assim. É isso aí mesmo. É o SOYUZ. E se alguém chegou aí e não viu a parte que eu tô dizendo, ele vai lançar 36 satélites para a constelação da ONEWEB. É o ONEWEB 7. Tá aqui, ó. Para a constelação da internet ONEWEB. E a missão hoje, que é a chamada de ONEWEB 7, que vai decolar do cosmódromo desse nome aqui, na Sibéria. Cinco pessoas nos assistindo e 2 likes. Deixa o like aí, galera. Ajuda muito. Ajuda muito a divulgar o canal, a divulgar a live. Deixa o like aí. Essa aqui é a segunda live do projeto JS Space. Então, se ficar muito calado, muito travado, é costume. Quando for pegando mais prática, aí vai sendo mais natural. Ok? Vamos lá, 5 minutos e 30 segundos para a live deles lá. Do Ariana Space. Sim, a Ariana Space, como é que a empresa Ariane Space vai usar o foguete SOYUZ para levar esses satélites para essa constelação de internet, como se fosse a Starlink, só que dessa empresa Ariane Space. Aqui, ó, Ariane Space. Mas já vai começar. Tá esperando aqui, ó. Que 5 minutos começa a live deles e a gente vai acompanhar direitinho o processo para o lançamento. Vamos lá, vamos lá. Quem chegou aí e ainda não é inscrito do canal, se inscreve. E deixa o like, ajuda a divulgar esse belo, como eu posso dizer, essa tecnologia, né? Muito bonita, que para quem gosta é sensacional. Para quem gosta mesmo, fica maravilhado com todos os lançamentos. Pode ser do mesmo foguete, mas cada lançamento é especial para quem gosta. E é isso aí, vamos lá. Não, a mesma empresa não. O mesmo projeto não. Cada empresa tem sua peculiaridade, sua individualidade. Então é diferente. Cada empresa é diferente, são separadas. Mas o conceito é o mesmo, né? Que ela vai à internet globalmente, via satélite. A gente, por exemplo, tinha a internet e a rádio. Aí o povo dizia, tem internet via satélite, não sei o que. Mas não, a internet via rádio é via ondas de rádio. Igual como a gente escuta o nosso rádio em casa. Elas são de torres, antenas bem grandes. Mas não é a propriamente dita satélite. Satélite vai ser Starlink e a ONEWEB. Essas sim vão ser de satélite propriamente ditas, que vão estar lá no espaço mandando internet pra gente. Mas para isso tem que ter um receptor, que é uma antena. Deixa eu mostrar a antena. Deixa eu mostrar aqui, Starlink antena. Aqui, essa é a antena da SpaceX, do Starlink. Ó, essa aqui, ó. Tá mostrando? Tá mostrando. Essa aqui, ó. É tipo fosse uma antena parabólica, só que para internet. Aí você pode levar ela para onde quiser. Dentro do mato, for acampar em algum canto, na própria casa. Aqui, ó. Alguns testes que alguma pessoa fez. Aqui, ó. Isso aqui é, digamos assim, quase todos os satélites que já estão em órbita. Entendeu, Henrique? Eu mudando pergunta, a gente vai interagindo aqui e ela vai ficando mais dinâmica, assim. Sem tanto parar de falar, sem tanto engasgo, digamos assim. Vocês vão mandando aí, ó. A rocha. Mas esperando aqui começar a live. É uma parabólica plana. Mas você pode levar para qualquer canto. Tendo, digamos assim, ela pega o sinal do satélite. Pega o sinal do satélite, aí joga tipo um roteador ou um modem. Aí joga o sinal do Wi-Fi ou a cabo. Se você puder ter um pouco de energia para alimentar o pelo menos o roteador, tá de boa. Ela vai transmitindo um sinal de internet. Wi-Fi, cabo. Você pode usar do jeito que for, do jeito que quiser. Ela vai pegar a internet via satélite, vai, digamos assim, decodificar na antena e jogar pro modem. Assim, a grosso modo. É assim que funciona. É top, top. Tops demais. Ih, rapaz. Top demais. E é barata. É só comprar antena. Deixa eu ver quanto tá custando uma. Deixa eu ver aqui. Preço. Vamos ver aqui quanto tá custando uma. Não, isso aqui não. $99. Brasil. Aqui, ó. É preciso pagar uma taxa de $99 para registrar a compra do kit e o roteador. Pro $500. A princípio a SpaceX divulga banda larga Starlink. Vai pagar uma vez só isso aqui, tá de boa. Deixa eu ver a cotação. Cotação dólar. Tá aqui 500 a R$2.000 aqui no Brasil. 2.000 conto. Carinho, viu? Mas pra só uma vez, pra quem mora, digamos assim, num canto isolado, está bom demais. Aí já começou. Salve, boy. Pônei. Pônei tapado, salve pra você. Rapaz, eu não tenho esse dedo todo ainda não, viu? Mas a gente tiver, a gente conversa. Que é carinho, viu? É carinho o foguete, viu? Não vende no Mercado Livre ainda não. Quem sabe um dia, né? Deixa eu ver. É meio caro. Caro demais. Tá bom, Iod, tá bom? Continua bom. O vídeo também. Fala aí. Aqui é meio no improviso, é meio nas gambiarra. Tem um cabo de rede vindo lá da sala pra cá. Vai ficar top. Já vai começar aqui. Só aguardar um pouquinho. Vostochny. Diretamente de Vostochny, na Sibéria. Minha webcam tá travando aí, que aqui no OBS tá travando. Tá travando aí minha webcam? Deixa eu botar a musiquinha aqui pra gente ouvir. Não, tá não. Tá certo, boy. Tô ligado. Espera aqui. Começar. Já tá começando. Tira uma foto aí no aumentar o som. Tá bom? Tá God? Bora que bora para um lançamento de foguetes. Foguete SOYUZ para a missão ONEWEB 7. Esta é a segunda live do projeto JS Space. Beleza, beleza. Escutar o som do foguete. Quando for o lançamento, eu vou botar essa tela aqui, ó. Quando for só o lançamento, para deixar vocês vendo o foguete por inteiro, sem minha cam. Bora que bora. Vamos que vamos. É mais um lançamento aí. Só musicão, ó. Chama. Chama. Chama, vai. Ó, começou. Começou a live. Bonito, não? É bonito, pô. É bonito quando ele... Quando ele libera a cruz de coral.
Well, hello, I'm Georgie Barrett, tech journalist and broadcaster, and welcome to ONEWEB's 7th satellite launch. Now, we are actually 24 hours late, as the launch was meant to take place yesterday, and in a minute we'll find out exactly why it was postponed. But the very good news is that we're now ready for action. Yes, today we're bringing you live the next stage of the mission, which will enable a better connected world. In the next half an hour, we'll see the latest batch of 36 ONEWEB broadband satellites launched into low Earth orbit from the state-of-the-art Vosnochny Cosmodrome in Russia. Each launch expands ONEWEB's capability to bring low latency, high-speed internet to those parts of the world where it's needed the most. Yes, this landmark day will bring the number of active ONEWEB satellites to over 200. So sit back and enjoy the next 30 minutes, as we're not only going to see the launch happen
falta 21 minutos para o
lançamento. We'll also
lançamento.
get to learn about what these satellites are doing and just how they are made. And if you want to get involved, you certainly can. Do come say hi to us on Twitter. You can send us your questions via @ONEWEB, or you can use the hashtag ONEWEBLaunch. Now, launch preparations are well underway, so let's find out what happened yesterday as we cross live to the
agora,
France to join
que é o canal JS Computer com um projeto ou, digamos assim, projeto JS Space.
Now, Stefan, talk me through what happened yesterday.
Levar conhecimento científico da área da astronomia, de foguetes, né? Ciência de foguetes. E para ver essa obra da engenharia e da tecnologia.
And this is to be done to make sure that we go for a safe and reliable
pega uma
launch.
pipoquinha, refrigerantezinho aí, e bora pra lá.
Our partners have decided to change this electrical equipment. It is a very easy
local do lançamento hoje será na Vosnochny, na Sibéria.
And now the launcher is fully ready for liftoff tonight. So good news.
Great. So it was quite an easy turnaround. It wasn't too difficult to sort.
No, it was more than easy to do it. It is really under standard procedure. I must say it's not the first time it happens. So we know perfectly well the story, and it is absolutely with no problem.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you very much, Stefan. Now, this is going to be your 7th launch. You and your team will operate for ONEWEB out of the 19 that are planned. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what's going to actually happen tonight?
Yes, so we are now in the final operations before the launch. So the liftoff shall occur at 5:38 Universal Time, and then the mission duration will be 3 hours and 51 minutes. So we will have a certain number of separations of the 36 satellites, and after
o combustível dele se chama propelente, é uma mistura de oxigênio líquido é a mistura do combustível com oxigênio líquido, é o propelente. O oxidante com
450 kilometers. And then the satellite, by their own propulsion means, are going to their final destination, which is a little more than 1,000 kilometers, to be exact, 1,200 kilometers from the Earth.
You know what, you make it sound almost quite simple, but I'm sure this is an incredibly complex mission that has been many months in the making, hasn't it?
Yes, for sure. It's a very complex mission. We have to prepare the satellites with our friends from ONEWEB Satellites. We have a team in Florida. We have also, for sure, our team in Vosnochny, and we are working very closely with the customer.
O combustível dele se chama propelente. É a mistura do oxidante, que é o oxigênio, com o combustível dele, que eu não me recordo não, mas é líquido, combustível líquido. Eu falei ontem.
what will happen in a few minutes.
Yeah, I got to ask, how are you feeling, Stefan? Do you get nervous at this point? Are you excited?
We are focused, we are very concentrated, we have to deliver. A launch is a launch, so we are focused on the tonight mission, and we will monitor the next step, and we will come back to you after.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, I'll let you get back to focusing and on with the job at hand. Thank you so much for taking the time to speaking to us tonight, Stefan. Now, let's speak to ONEWEB's launch expert, Vice President for Space Infrastructure Development, Maurizio Vanotti. Welcome, Maurizio. Good to have you back again. Now, it'd just be great to get your thoughts on last night's postponement.
We're grateful for the support from Arianespace team in both Vostochny and Paris. What is important is that the suspected anomaly was caught in time, and we look forward to today's launch.
Absolutely. It is really great that they managed to solve it in time for tonight's launch. Now, before we actually get to that, let's look in more detail at the satellites themselves, because there are already 182 right now circling above us, and today's launch will bring that total to a very impressive 218. By the end of this year, the ONEWEB infrastructure will be large enough to deliver continuous connectivity at latitudes above 50 degrees north, which will include the UK, Northern Europe, Canada and Alaska. Now, once the ONEWEB constellation is complete, 648 satellites will connect you to fast, low latency internet wherever you may live or travel. So, whether you're mid-ocean, mid-air, or just, in the middle of nowhere when I'm off visiting my grandma on the sticks, those satellites will be able to bring connectivity for the very first time to the most hard-to-reach places. So let me just give you a little bit more background on the satellites themselves. They're around the size and weight of a fridge, and they are powered by lithium-ion batteries, just like electric cars. But unlike those, these guys get all their charge from solar
Entendendo
power.
tudo que a mulher tá
The design
falando.
itself consists of 4 modules, which fit together in the shape of a box to form the main structure. That modular design means that they can be manufactured quickly and cost-effectively. Now, the satellites are manufactured by ONEWEB Satellites in Florida's historic Space Coast. ONEWEB Satellites is a joint venture between ONEWEB and Airbus, and they're able to produce 2 satellites a day for around 1/50th of the time and cost of traditional construction. Really, really impressive stuff. They're then shipped to Russia to be loaded into the dispenser, which is located at the top of Arianespace SOYUZ launch vehicle. Now, compared to
Aqui, ó.
geostationary satellites,
Tá falando aqui
ONEWEB
que a
satellites
missão
will orbit
vai levar
30 times closer to the Earth,
36
giving us that
satélites para a
low
órbita,
latency, high speed,
para a
stable
constelação
connection.
de ONEWEB.
Individual
E
satellites
essa missão
act
se
like
chama
nodes in a
ONEWEB
network,
7, que é a
transferring
7ª
your
vez
data
que vai
wherever
levar
you are in the
os
world.
36
Now, earlier,
satélites
I spent a little bit of time chatting with
numa altitude
ONEWEB
orbital
Satellite
de
CEO James Hines
450
and mechanical
km
engineer
de altura,
Chelsea Spagnolia to see just how these marvels come to life.
com a altura final de 1.200
Hello
km
James,
de
nice to
altura.
meet you. Firstly, can you just give us a little bit of background on ONEWEB Satellites? What makes you guys different from other satellite manufacturers?
Well, Georgie, how long have you got for that answer? But I'll try and be quick. So, Georgie, thanks a lot for the privilege of talking today. Airbus ONEWEB Satellites is basically a joint venture between Airbus and ONEWEB. And its sole mission is to basically design and to produce satellites for low Earth orbit. And just to kind of give a couple of points of reference, so exactly what Ford did in mass production of cars and Airbus do in the mass production of aircraft is what we want to do and we are doing with satellites. And so, again, looking at those examples I told you, you're looking at many units coming off a production line in any given day.
Why is it so important that you're creating them at such a rate?
Well, there's 2 reasons. First of all, today is a 7th launch for ONEWEB, and it's a real milestone in terms of being able to say we have built 200 operational spacecraft.
No momento o foguete se encontra ventilando.
If you look at the overall size of the constellation for ONEWEB,
para quem não entende essa fumaça, para quem se pergunta por que ele está fumaçando, não é fogo, não é.
to launch
Isso
for the
aí é
business
como se
case for
fosse
their
uma panela de
constellation.
pressão.
So can you just talk
Tem
me a little bit
o-
more
o-
about this production process?
O
'Cause this is
combustível,
really
né, o
what makes you
propelente,
guys
e esse
unique.
propelente solta
How
muito
does this
gases,
operation all come together?
que é essa fumaça.
So
E ele é
the
muito
factory,
gelado.
for producing the
Aí,
spacecraft
o
is
contrário da
in
panela de pressão,
Florida.
que ela é quente.
But
Mas
it'd
mesmo
be
assim, ela não tem
remiss of me
que
to mention the
soltar
other
a
people
fumacinha
who
pela
make
válvula, senão ela
that
explode.
really a
O
partnership.
mesmo
So
conceito
first
é
of
aqui
all,
no
we
foguete.
have a site in
É a mesma
SOYUZ,
coisa.
France, where we have a good
Liberar a
few, if
pressão
not
para
the
ele não
majority
explodir.
of our engineering team and also support services. But we also rely on a global network of suppliers who bring in those raw elements to make the spacecraft happen
Tamo
in
junto,
Florida.
Henrique.
And then the final piece of the puzzle, in terms of a partnership, is our customers. And it's absolutely important that they are involved at every single step of the process. So when they get those spacecraft ready for launch, like we have today, they know exactly what work, what quality, what performance has gone in to make that happen. So it's really about a global partnership, looking at our suppliers, looking at our various factories and OneWeb satellites, and of course the customer who is along with us at all points of that journey.
Well, speaking of that global teamwork, let's now speak to
Compartilhando aí, mandando nos
Kelsey,
grupos de
who's actually
vocês
over in
aí.
Florida. She's one of the engineers that builds these satellites. Kelsey, it's so nice to meet you.
Divulgar a
Tell me
live.
where you are, because I feel like that's the production line right behind you. Am I right?
Hi, Georgie. Yes, you're correct. There is a part of the production line behind me that you can see, and this is where we build one of the 4 modules that make up the satellite.
Could you talk me through that process then? How do you actually go about building a satellite?
We have 4 main modules that come together to build the satellite. The first 3 are what we call the service modules. We have the avionics module, which is the brain of the satellite. It has a computer on board that processes all of the functions for the satellite. Next, we have the propulsion module, which helps propel the satellite into its right position in orbit. And then we have our solar arrays that are the power system that use the solar energy to charge the battery, which charges the satellite.
Pra quem é da
And then our
informática aí
last
sabe o que
section is the
significa isso
payload,
aqui,
which
ó.
is the overall purpose of
Big
the
Data
spacecraft
ou
mission.
Big Data.
And that for us and for our
Quem
customers
sabe aí,
is to
fala no
have
chat aí.
RF communication for broadband
Quem que sabe o que
connectivity.
Well, thank you so
significa
much for joining
Big
us,
Data
Kelsey.
ou
I'll
Big
let you
Data.
get back to work.
Thank you.
Quem já
James, let me
escutou
come
falar?
back to you, because you mentioned earlier that global partnerships are really required to make the production process successful, but on a more local scale, by actually building OneWeb satellites in Merritt Island, you guys are really having an impact on the local economy, aren't you?
We definitely are. And Florida, we are having the great privilege of being on the Space Coast. So we have access to a great number of people, great number of skills, and also various organizations who are very, very tuned to providing that level of quality.
Ninguém
So
sabe o que é
that's one
Big
thing
Data
which we have.
ou
But
Big
at the
Data.
same time, what we're trying to do is to work with local development corporations. So we've got corporations like the Space Florida, who've helped us build that particular vision and mission, and other development corporations within Florida. But then at the same time, what we are also trying to do is we're trying to feed back into that workforce, into that ecosystem elements. So, for example, we have an apprenticeship program which roughly runs for about 2
Sim,
years,
mas
where we're
esse
developing
termo
those
usa
high-tech skills,
na
so that we're
computação.
not just taking from the
Informática.
database and the
Tu escutou?
portfolio of people around us, but we're actually trying to feed back into that workforce going forward.
Brilliant. So you're both sort of tapping into the expertise that's already there in the area and also helping bring up the next generation of talent. Can I just quickly ask, how are you feeling? How does launch day feel for you?
Launch day is a huge relief because you have got everything done when the customer needs it to be done. But it's also a day of great excitement to be shared with a lot of people. And there's also a little bit of nerves.
Aí, quantos
not in
satélites
what
ela
you've built, what you've
planeja
done, but the fact that everything's
botar em
coming
órbita na
together to
constelação?
go on a rocket, which is
Passou
an
aí.
extremely established, well-designed, proven product, but still bringing it all together on launch day. It's just a little bit of nerves, but it's a whole mixture of feelings. It's a good day, and I do wish OneWeb the very best.
Absolutely. James, thank you so much for joining me.
Okay, thank you.
Well, speaking of those nerves,
Menos de 8
liftoff
minutos
is
para o
less than 8
lançamento.
minutes away. Very shortly, we'll see ONEWEB continuing their mission to connecting the unconnected. Now, technology has been crucial in keeping us all in contact this past year. And while it may seem like everyone has a smartphone these days, almost half the world, which is more than 4 billion people, are not yet online. And for many that are, the service can be slow and intermittent. Well, ONEWEB hopes to change that by giving everyone the connection that many of us take for granted. And as we're so close to liftoff, let's now check in with Maurizio to see how preparations are going for the ONEWEB team. Maurizio.
Thanks, Georgie. Over the last few hours, the Satellite Operations Center, the SOC, as we call it, has performed a series of checks. At T-4 hours, we did a final check with the telemetry and telecommand ground stations that will acquire the satellites after the separation from the upper stage. At T-45 minutes, the SOC team has given the final go for launch. The battery status has been monitored, and right now our 36 satellites are warm and cozy inside the fairing at the top of the SOYUZ rocket.
Okay, well, speaking of those warm and cozy satellites, can you talk me a little bit about how they actually function?
Well, absolutely. So the satellites are a shape of a large fridge, as you mentioned earlier on, and the two key elements, most notably, are the antennas that enable the connection, from the internet to the user terminals and vice versa. We have two dishes, two parabolas that are in charge for the connectivity with the ground network, in particular the gateway stations in Ka band. And what looks like a fanned out deck of card in the face of the satellite that looks toward the Earth is the KU, the user terminal antenna that transmits in KU band. You can also see the solar panels. These are, the wings of our birds that deploy after the satellite separates from the rocket.
Great stuff. Well, let's bring into the conversation from Ariane Space, their Chief Brand and Communication Officer, Gregory Gavroy. Welcome, Gregory.
Hi, Georgie. Hello, everyone. I'm
Mas isso aí é lá na Ariane Space. Se eu não me engano, ela fica localizada no Canadá. Se eu não me engano, salvo engano, é no Canadá. Que é a empresa que está usando um foguete SOYUZ lá em Vostochny, na Sibéria, para lançar. Olha o bichão bonito. A coifa.
Okay, Georgie, here we go. So the combined operations have consisted in first,
a gente vê de longe pequeno, mas olha o tamanho só da coifa.
On the upper stage of the SOYUZ launcher.
Aos motores.
It's called the frigate. And second, the encapsulation phase with the fairing installation. This operation has been processed horizontally, as you can see, in dedicated facility and clean room. And then what you can see in the video is a transfer.
Esse foguete contém 3 estágios, que é esses 4 motores laterais, o do meio grandão e o último estágio, que é o da coifa, que é para levar o foguete em órbita. Tá vendo? Tem 4 laterais e um no meio, que é o grandão. Aí daqui para frente é o terceiro estágio. Bonito, né não? Aí ele vai ser botado na plataforma de lançamento. Ela meio que segura ele no meio. Aí quando ele vai lançar, ele liga. Aí essas torres vai e abre pra coisar. Nunca botaram numa moto não, agora um de jato já botaram já. Foguete de jato.
D-2, so 2 days before the launch, so to say. And while I was speaking, I'm also connected with the monitoring system of the mission, and I can confirm that final ops are running as expected, and we have a SOYUZ rocket ready for launch tonight.
Well, that I'm very pleased to hear.
Que é massa demais. Tem o da SpaceX. Tem live 24 horas vendo os cabos mexendo no foguete.
right
O foguete é
now. We've
montado
got some
tipo
visuals
na
on it.
rua, assim, aberto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lá em
So,
Boca
so far,
Chica.
final operations
Aí a
are
galera
still
fica.
running as
Tem
expected,
pessoas
as
que
you can
alugam a
see
casa
behind me.
lá, mora
So
lá,
all
só
good
pra
here.
gravar.
The
E
beginning
a galera
of the
fica
launch
assistindo e o povo
vehicle
assiste.
final automatic
Os
sequence has been
operários lá
initiated
montando os
manually
foguetes,
around
levando, transportando os
H0.
foguetes.
H0 is the lift of time,
O foguete
minus
vindo
5
da
minutes,
balsa.
with a turn
Isso é
of
massa.
key in start position. So let me share a secret with you. In Russian, the command order is called kluch na start, meaning key on start. And purging
Tem o Lab
operations are
Padre,
ongoing,
tem
likewise. And a few
um monte de
seconds ago,
canal
the umbilical connectors
que vão
were
pra lá, botar as
separated,
câmeras e
meaning
coisa.
on frigate, the upper stage, the switch has now been down to the onboard power supply system, making the upper stage powered autonomously. Before this disconnection, 2 minutes and 25
Daqui a 2
seconds
minutos.
before liftoff, the communications
T-2
between the ground and the launcher of the part
T-2
were provided by the
Ju.
umbilical connectors indeed.
T-2.
And in the meantime, the pressurization of the Soyuz 3-stage tanks is being
T-2.
run, and at H0 minus 45 seconds, the switch will
Que
be
tempo.
done to the 3-stage onboard power.
Brilliant stuff, and I've just seen some lights going on there, all very exciting. Maurizio,
Em
how are you feeling right now?
apresentação,
This is
a
pretty
Rússia
complicated
leva
mission, isn't it?
de 10 a
It
0,
is.
ou
We've got a long
ganha de
journey
10 a
ahead. We have a
0
lot of satellites
da
to drop off in
SpaceX,
different
porque
locations.
olha a
It's a complex
apresentação
mission
antes
for
do
Soyuz that
lançamento.
will be completed in just under 4 hours.
SpaceX não, a
Gregory,
SpaceX
as
é
we
um
haven't
vídeo
got long until
introdutório
takeoff, can
e
you talk me through
acabou.
exactly what happens in
Aqui
those
não, aqui é
final
tudo,
few seconds before
todo um
the big
roteiro,
moment?
todo um contexto para o lançamento, falando o que
Georgia,
isso
indeed,
faz,
we are
o que
getting
isso
information
deixa de
from
fazer,
a
tá
team of
ligado?
colleagues in Russia. We call it in
Explicando
French the
tudo,
CDI, actually
até
the
os próprios
Immediate Insight Control Team. And this
contratantes
operational team is
falam
tracking the
que é
launch
a Ariane
vehicle
Space
and
que
receives
contratou
telemetry
o
data
foguete
directly from
SOYUZ
it,
para lançar.
and is thus able to confirm
Lembrando
when
que
a
esse
major
foguete não é
milestone of
reutilizável.
the
Os
launch
únicos
sequence has
reutilizáveis
been passed.
hoje são
Brilliant stuff.
Falcon 9 e o Falcon Heavy.
So that is what is going to be happening in those final 30 seconds. They're going to be doing those final checks right now.
Ele
Now,
vai,
this is actually a very early
esse
morning launch
foguete
over
vai
in Russia.
levar
It's about 2 a.m.
36
over there.
satélites para
They've
pôr
been
em
working
órbita na
throughout the
constelação
night, and as we wait for
ONEWEB, que é essa
liftoff,
constelação. Essa
Maurizio,
constelação é
just
como
talk
se
me
fosse
through
a
what we're
Starlink.
seeing on the live feed
Vai
here.
levar para uma
So
constelação de
it's,
satélites
just
para
about,
gerar
30
internet
seconds, less than
global.
30 seconds right now. The launch was
Praticamente
delayed by a
isso.
day, and as explained by
Grosso
our
modo.
colleagues from Arianespace, this was due to apparently an anomaly on one of the units.
Oh, I can see some smoke coming out there. Actually, I can feel like the infrastructure. It's dark out
Agora
there.
vai
I feel
ser
like the
meio que no
infrastructure
susto o
is moving
lançamento.
away there.
Já tiraram até o time.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's really atmospherical,
almost
actually,
there.
seeing the sort of smoke around it in
Vou
the
botar
night
aqui.
time. That is incredible.
We're
So,
almost there. So this is launch number
Em tela cheia, pra vocês.
1939 for Soyuz rocket.
and look at that, the smoke is starting to billow out, and that is it.
Foi,
The engines
ligou.
have ignited. The thrusters are going to be going through those different stages that Gregory was speaking about. Look at that blaze, it's just phenomenal. You can actually see the vibrations. And there we have
Foi
it.
lançado.
Liftoff of ONEWEB's launch
Ligou!
7.
Vocês vão ver a cruz de Korolev agora. Que é o primeiro estágio
This is phenomenal.
se descolando
I share the feelings of all
do
my
foguete.
colleagues when I say that I'm so excited right now. And along this, there's
tem
intention
muitos.
keeping us all on our toes and keeping
Só eu não
us
sei dizer
moving
não,
forward.
exatamente
Right
não.
now, you're seeing the boosters doing
Olha o bichão
all the hard
subindo
work,
aí, ó.
pushing us against the Earth gravity. They're gonna burn in just
Ih, parei.
less than 2 minutes.
Agora vocês vão ver a cruz de Korolev. Aqui é por dentro da coifa. E aqui são duas câmeras no exterior do foguete.
Increasing its speed through different stages of the ascent. The final orbital velocity will be around 7.6 kilometers per second, not per hour, but per second. Right
E a
now,
dentro
the
instantes vamos ver a
satellites
cruz
are
de Korolev, que é
experiencing an
os
acceleration
foguetes.
of about 5 Gs.
O primeiro
It's
estágio se
similar to
descolando
ride an
do
extreme white-knuckle roller
foguete
coaster.
principal.
That's a seriously extreme roller coaster.
Yes, absolutely. We're launching also, important to say, in plane
Esse
3
o lançamento da Rússia tipo assim, no susto. Quando chega em determinado tempo, ele tira o time e depois recoloca de novo.
We're going to have deployed more than 1/3 of our constellation. So 4 hours journey before all the 36 satellites are released from now.
So this is the start of that 4-hour journey ahead of the satellite. Gregory, can you explain how can you explain how you're getting that information that we're seeing on
Parando sem
screen at the
querer
moment
aqui.
from the rocket?
Yeah, absolutely.
Olha aí, olha
explain to you
aí.
what is the role of our colleagues in charge of the telemetry.
Prepare-se para a cruz de cora leve.
Telemetry is okay, and everything is nominal for the moment. I can come back on a short moment.
Vocês vão ver
You've
que lindo que é a
experienced,
cruz de
just a
cora
few
leve.
seconds before the launch, what we call the ignition sequence. So we had a progressive increasing of the thrust level. Actually, you experienced it. The goal of this
A cruz de cora leve.
is to make sure that the engines work normally.
Olha como
So we
é
go from
bonito os
20%
estágios
of full
saindo do
power,
foguete.
11 seconds before liftoff, to full
Virou aí,
thrust
virou
level
aí.
at liftoff time H0. That was impressive.
It was really impressive and it's so exciting to watch. And you know,
Lá tá de
delightful that
noite.
it's been a
Sabe por quê?
successful
Porque a
liftoff.
terra é
Of course,
plana.
this
Oh,
is just the
terra
start
plana
of
não,
the journey,
terra
as you've
redonda.
been saying. Maurizio, can you talk us
Por
through
isso
what
que a
those
terra é
next
redonda,
stages
porque
are?
aqui é de
So
dia, lá é
we-
de
we've just
noite.
seen,
A
you know,
terra é
the booster
redonda,
separation. So we are,
redondinha,
we've seen it,
redondinha.
live, and we don't need the
É uma
booster
bola
separation.
assim,
It's
por isso
all
que lá tá
part
de
of the plan.
noite.
We are shedding unnecessary weight.
Brilliant stuff. And Gregory, when do we reach maximum acceleration? And is that a very particular point? Is it important?
Ele fica em
Yeah,
órbita.
absolutely, Georgie. This
Não,
is
eles
critical.
caem
The
na
job-
terra.
this is
Eles caem no
actually
mar.
the job of the first stage of our SOYUZ
Eles
rocket
perdem velocidade
is
e caem
to
no
get
mar.
the launch vehicle
Agora o satélite
away
não, o
from
satélite
the Earth.
continua.
So it is needed to provide maximum acceleration level from the very moment of the liftoff, actually. So the first stage,
Como assim
which
usa somente a
consists in
velocidade
four
que foram
boosters
lançados, Henrique?
arranged around the central core,
Cai
is
no
called
mar.
the bundle, and it
Os
weighs,
estágios caem no mar.
45 metric ton each. And this bundle is
Como
powered,
assim, Henrique? Usa
by
somente
engines, they are
a
called with the
velocidade que
lovely
foram
and sweet
lançados.
name
Não
of
entendi.
RD107A, which produce a total thrust of 340 metric tons at liftoff. Impressive, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Gregory, and thank you. And right now there are 36 ONEWEB satellites that are sitting on the top of the SOYUZ launcher. The fairing is protecting them in the initial phase of the ascent.
A coifa
The fairing
saindo.
has several jobs. It's
Aqui
a
já saiu a
shield.
coifa.
Most notably, what the fairing does is protecting the satellites from severe conditions of the launch and
Foi que eu falei também da
There's
Lua. Se ela
acoustic
perder
vibrations at
velocidade de
liftoff,
órbita,
and also friction
ela cai na
when the
Terra.
launcher is flying through the dense part of the atmosphere.
Ah,
very high
não.
speed. At the present altitude,
tem
there's
tempo
no more
específico, não.
atmosphere, so no need to maintain
Tipo,
the
tem
fairing
satélite que
on the
morreu,
launcher
ó,
to protect the
faz
satellite,
tempo
so
e
the
ainda tá na
launcher will be
órbita.
soon liberated from these dead weights as well.
É
If you
tipo,
could
se ele
see
perder muita
the
velocidade.
satellites right now,
Por
you
exemplo,
will
a
notice that
velocidade
they are
orbital é
attached to a
27 mil
central
km.
dispenser in a configuration that
Se ele
is
for
designed
gradativamente
to
perdendo essa velocidade, ele vai caindo.
each of them having
Vai
a
baixando
truncated pyramid
a altitude
configuration
e vai
that
caindo.
maximizes the number of satellites inside the fairing itself. But we are now at the end of the second stage phase.
Brilliant. So, Gregory, can you talk us
sim, o
through what
satélite
the
dentro da
next
coifa.
stage is then?
Entendi.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, Maurizio just mentioned the fairing. I can confirm it has been jettisoned and separated.
Great, great
as well
news.
as the first stage. So great news. The launch
Success
is going well.
so far. Yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
going very well.
And still in order to save weight, as Mauricio mentioned, the second stage and the fairing has been separated, and it is now the turn of the third stage.
Saiu o
to go for
semi-estágio.
approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Saiu o
So the third
semi-estágio.
stage is powered by one
Deixa eu
other
botar em tela
engine
cheia para
with,
vocês
called
verem.
with one other sweet and lovely name. This one is RD124, and it produces a thrust of 30 metric tons.
Brilliant. So, you know, these stages are clearly really important to the launch. Would you mind, Gregory, just giving us a sort of a summary of the stages that we've seen so far and what we can expect for the remainder of the mission?
Absolutely, Georgie. Happy to. So tonight's mission started with the 4 boosters phase for a duration of about 2 minutes. Then you remember the core stage
Aqui, ó, o
took the
satélite que
reins during
mostrou.
less than 3 minutes, just a few moments after the fairing has been jettisoned and separated. Now, ahead of us, you can see it on the animation, the next step is the separation of the third stage from the nose module, which will occur 9 minutes and 22 seconds after liftoff. What is the nose module? So it includes the upper stage, called FOGUETE, again, the dispenser, which is the structure that gathers the satellites on the launcher, and the 36 ONEWEB satellites themselves. The FOGUETE upper stage will start doing its job with the first ignition of its main engine in order to reach the intermediate transfer orbit. This phase will then be followed by a long ballistic phase. And the second ignition will be performed for circularization and injection of the satellites into their separation orbit. So the satellites release sequence will start with, first, the separation of the 4 satellites integrated on the top conical part of the dispenser, and then 8 successive separation of the 32 satellites integrated on the cylindrical part of the dispenser, from the top row to the bottom row, 4 satellites at once. And as illustrated on this 3D animation, it means that 9 separation events are necessary for the complete release of the 36 satellites.
Ele
And
mostrando o
between each
foguete aí.
separation event, the sequence is identical. 19 minutes, which consists in a series of maneuvers like follow. Firstly, a tilting maneuver of the nose model, then a boost of the frigate to gain in speed during a few seconds, with the aim to ensure enough distance between the satellites and thus to avoid the risk of a collision. Then a new tilting of the nose model to the required orientation for the satellite separations. And finally, the separation is commanded by the frigate upper stage itself, triggering a smooth separation ensured by the relaxation and specific springs. And the end of this complex release sequence occurs a little bit less than 4 hours after the liftoff with the 9th and last sequence of satellite separation. Easy, isn't it, Georgie?
I'm glad I'm not in charge of all that, but thank you. That was really helpful to just sort of get that overview of exactly what awaits
todo
the
vapor.
ONEWEB satellites. Now, Maurizio, we've
Levando os
discussed
foguetes
stage
para a
1 and
órbita.
stage 2. Can you talk us through
Creio
phase
que nesse
3?
momento ele já tenha soltado o
The launch phase are always extremely
segundo
exciting,
estágio.
and we're looking forward to confirming stage 3 separation. While waiting for that, let's take a moment to highlight that we're also in the process of deploying our ground network infrastructure.
As antenas que
The
ele usa
key
aí.
elements of which are the satellite access portals. These are antenna farms, as we call them, distributed across the globe. That is a key piece of what will enable the commercial service introduction and continuous connectivity at latitudes above the 50 degrees north by the end of 2021. But now we're coming closer to frigate ignition.
So, Gregory, let's go back to you. Can you update us on any progress? Have you heard anything more?
Yes, Georgie, so the third stage is on the way to be separated.
Aqui
And,
tem
the
base de
frigate
lançamento em
upper stage is,
Alcântara,
getting ready
que
to
é,
switch on its main engine, just
se eu não me
looking at
engano,
the
no
colleagues to
Maranhão.
see if the third
Sei que é em
stage has been
Alcântara,
separated
base de
yet, not
lançamento.
yet, it's coming,
E aquele
I'll keep you
foguete
informed.
era
And, so
foguete,
after that,
digamos
the third
assim,
step is called the
era
fuel
avião.
burn phase, and it lasts 55 seconds. So its aim
Ou era
is to
avião ou
give
era
a quick burst of
satélite.
acceleration, and
Não
hence
sei
to
direito não.
push. And I just had the confirmation that the third stage has been separated. So
Great. Actually, you can see that.
Aí
on
saiu o
screen as
segundo
you were
estágio
speaking.
agora.
That's really incredible. So
Absolutely.
that's
And
now
so,
confirmed.
Yeah, I'm pursuing with the explanation of and so
Saiu o segundo
the aim
estágio.
of this burn phase is to push the fluids back in the tank.
Não, terceiro estágio.
Exactly what will happen here with the fuel in the tanks. So this is the description of the first step of the
Terceiro estágio já foi
ignition.
separado.
And this first ignition enables to inject the nose model into an
E aqui tá o
intermediary
CGI.
transfer orbit, which is actually an elliptical orbit. And the duration of this boost is just over 5 minutes. So fingers crossed now, we will be able to confirm the success of this ignition in a few seconds, so stay tuned, folks.
Brilliant. I'm glad it's all going so well. Maurizio, can you talk us through what's going to happen next?
Well, the next phase of the journey is about to start. The frigate is really the smartest part of the rocket with its own brain, and it will execute a series of separations as described by Gregory. This is like a school bus drop-off, as it will release 4 satellites per stop.
É, mas isso aqui se chama CGI. Não é ele realmente não. Digamos assim, é uma computação gráfica, digamos assim. Chama CGI.
Once the satellites are released, the onboard computer wakes them up, and
então, essa simulação se chama CGI.
takes control of the satellites.
Tem essa e tem uma mais feinha que é mostrando o foguete subindo e tal.
So far, so good.
E os parâmetros dele aqui embaixo.
Maurizio, and of course the entire team at
Que não, que foi mais organizadozinho.
Satellites and Arias Space for allowing us to join them live and for all their insights. Really exciting stuff. Well, that's nearly all we have time for. But before we go, Maurizio, as you can expect, we've had quite a few questions coming in from Twitter. People have been submitting them to you. So I thought we'd just quickly finish with you answering some of them. So our first question has come from Jeffrey, and he's asked, how does OneWeb's connectivity work over oceans?
The objective of OneWeb is to deliver fast broadband at a global scale.
É o
with low
satélite
latency.
36.
And we can do this thank you to our ground network infrastructure that you
36
briefly were
satélites.
mentioning and referring to earlier on. Is essentially a network of antennas that
Sim, é
are
o
grouped
Henrique
in
de
antenna
respondendo aí.
farms
Ó. Sim.
that ensure that each and every
Che pro.
satellite at any point in time throughout the orbit is connected to the ground. And that ensures continued connectivity from a user perspective.
Great stuff. And Antonella wants to know, how does someone buy OneWeb's service? Can you explain how to
assim,
actually go about
satélite.
ordering it?
It's simple.
Tá
Just
certo.
ask your preferred local telecom operator. There are many kinds of OneWeb customers, local communities, global enterprises, telcos, carriers and mobile operators, businesses, and governments everywhere.
Não
We aim to
seja
be partners of choice for the hardest to reach end users. And we are working with local telecom operators who invest locally, so our partners in Alaska, so that we can connect users at scale. These great distribution partners bring the service to businesses, communities, and
desloca,
customers
sai.
alike. We are
Aí
not
vai,
a customer business,
vai para
so we
sua
serve your
constelação.
preferred existing network provider.
Aí no ONEWEB.
This way, it's easier for businesses and
É muito
consumers.
difícil
They can
de
use the
satélite
preferred
um
existing
seguir no outro, tá
provider
ligado?
with billing and servicing and
atrás de outros.
upgrades and all part of the package they already have.
Great. And our final question comes from Imani, and she had an interesting question about the user device, which is actually
Deixa eu mostrar
something
aqui
we
a
haven't
você.
spoken about in this episode. But can you just quickly talk to us about how it works?
It's called User Terminal. It's a simple, reliable antenna device that connects you, the user, to the internet, no matter where you are in the world. OneWeb's network can be accessed wherever there is direct line of sight to the sky above from the user terminals itself. You can connect to the internet via the user terminal. It's a resilient, secure, affordable two-way
Aqui, ó.
communication.
Eles vão ficar assim,
To
ó.
enable quality connectivity,
Desse jeito
we
aqui,
need
ó.
a
Um
new
atrás
class
do
of
outro.
LEO user terminal, low
Aqui,
Earth
ó.
orbit user terminal.
Um
And
atrás
we're
do outro.
working with a range of
Aqui é
user terminal
60.
partners to offer to
Lá
our
vai ser
customers
menor, é
different
30.
sizes and power terminals depending on your needs, the capacity that you required.
Entenderam aí?
Small, medium and large enterprises, rural schools and communities, major verticals such as maritime, aviation, enterprise,
Ele fica daquela
and
forma lá.
governments, you name it.
Thank you so much, Maurizio, for those insights. And thank you also to everyone who submitted their questions and talked over on
E aqui
Twitter.
o CGI.
So I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Thank you, Maurizio, for joining us.
Thank you, Georgie.
So we've seen the liftoff of Launch 7. This mission truly takes an incredible amount of teamwork and collaboration, and it's impressive to see how this dream comes together. Today we got one step closer to OneWeb's mission, connecting the unconnected, and it really won't be long until we can do it all again. So look out for the details of Launch 8. This one is going to be a very special event because if it all goes well, OneWeb will have grown its network large enough to bring full connectivity to the top half of the Northern Hemisphere. So you can follow this particular project, launch number 7, as it progresses over on OneWeb's social media channels. But for now, from me and all the team at OneWeb, thank you for watching and goodbye.
Acabou-se. Aí o próximo vai ser o 8. ONEWEB 8. Acabou aqui. Deixa eu... Acabou aqui. E é isso aí, galera. Gostou da live? Live vai chegando ao fim por aqui. E é nóis. Quem gostou, deixa o like. Compartilha a live aí. Vai ficar gravada para quem quiser ver de novo. E é isso aí. Vou nessa. Falou! Fui! É, os Falcon 9 demora demais. Tu é doido. Aqui é ligeirinho. Mas isso aí, eu vou fechar a live aqui e é nóis. Valeu.